Welcome to the TryPod, where we break down the NRL every game, every week from a punting perspective. As you will have probably already noticed, it's a little bit of a different outlook here. It's just me, your friend Winnie, barbecuing alone tonight to recap round 17. So please, guys, help me out. I'll be a little bit less smooth with the transitions, with the graphics. But I want to include you guys more than ever. So let me know your takes and your takeaways from round 17. We had a good weekend on the punt. Just knowing me and the greedy punter that I am, I come to you disappointed. 3-0 on the best bets on the back of winning the best bet Origin 2 as well. We won the mixed matchup with fair bit of ease this afternoon. We needed the Roosters to score more than the Doggies 15 in either of the halves, and the Roosters eclipsed that in both halves. So we had that paid out 25 minutes into the game tonight. So I should be happy with the sweep, right? But I'm looking at a Warriors game where I had Warriors written as a best bet, and the odds were changing as we were live, and I wasn't sure I could grab the best available, and I left it on the table. And then we go to a Dragons game where I think just being a Finns fan got the better of me, because I even told people I was tipping Dragons. My heart was telling me maybe Dolphins, but my head said Dragons. And that's, in reflection, the more I thought about it, I'm like, the Dragons should have been a best bet. So I was really hoping I'd be wrong and the Dolphins would win today, but no, the Dragons won easy. So I come out of that round saying I should have done better. And I'm disappointed in myself, and I'm sorry that I'm more winners for you guys. But let's talk about what we learned in each of the games. I guess I can't complain too much with the sweep, considering how tough this season has been. And again, I'll include your takes where I can. So this was a cracker of a game, low scoring, but that's how I wanted it. On Friday night, it was Bulldogs Sharks, and the best bet was Bulldogs under 20.5. And I have to say, it is sweet when I thought the Sharks would win, and I didn't lay the line because I also respect the defensive ability of both these teams. And you actually get an upset, but staying under the team total. And the total was probably the best way to play this game, under 46.5. So we won our best bet there with under 20.5. I was going to get to Clarkey, who's in the comments, hitting his Clarkey's collect again as well in the most recent game. He hit his same game multi with the Roosters, covered the line by 30 points, and Tupou, who had not one but two drops. So Clarkey's been in far greater form than myself, but we both had a little purple patch the last week or two. So tell me what you thought about this game, guys. Are you starting to get concerned about the Sharkies? I know a lot of heat is going to come back on Nico for sure. To me, there's similarities in some of these games the Sharkies have blown. Like, part of the reason the Sharks lose this game is they lose it in the first 15 minutes. In fact, I'd say they lost it in the first 15 and the last 15. They started slow out of the blocks, the Sharkies, dropped it first set. You give up a try, ultimately, a grubber and regather for Viliame Kikau, of all people. It's 12-0 before you can blink. And, of course, I'm thinking, here we go. That's my first best bet of the round. And you're going to have some work to do. But luckily, the Sharkies arrested back momentum and actually took control of the game. And when the Sharkies got in front in the second half, they had all the running. And to me, it looked like, oh, well, the Sharkies will actually cover the line anyway. Could have played it that way. Like, Sharkies were in control and definitely had the ascendancy. And I really feel that there was just a couple of moments in the last 15 minutes, a crusher tackle on first tackle down the Doggies' end that gave the Dogs a big leg up, a six again late in a count when the Doggies were only about on halfway and down a couple of points chasing the game. And then the Doggies got another penalty, which let you take the 2 in a tight game, down 2, and we go to extra time. I think before extra time, Burton gave him an almighty scare with a 45-meter field goal that just missed, and then in Golden Point, Birdo misses another long bomb, and then Birdo missed both times at the end of regulation, because then the Dogs dropped it first set of extra time, and I thought they're going to let the Sharks off the hook here. The Sharkies just completely get to set up and take this game away. And the Sharkies probably got too close. They mentioned that in commentary. Once you get inside the 10, then you're not 10 meters away from the defensive line. So there's more players that can get close to charge it down. But Nico still got the shot on goal, and he has to make that. And, as Paul says, Nico's gone, confidence destroyed. And we saw something like this a year ago when Nico got that Origin debut it was not or it was memorable for the wrong reasons, and his club form definitely waned afterwards. And look, it's one moment. It's very harsh, but these are the guys that are paid the big bucks and play that position that get all the glory. And we know how many times Nico gets, 3 Dally M points or 6, or this year I think you could get 9 Dally M votes. Sorry, it is just 6. But you know how often Nico will get the credit when Sharks win. So look, when he misses from in front, you've got to take responsibility. And as a halfback, you've got to decide when you're taking that shot too. As I said, maybe Cronulla got too close. And of course, it's worth mentioning, Nico had the best kicking percentage in the competition. He did miss twice in this game as well. Now, they were both from out wide, but you make either of those wide ones, and then the Dogs aren't in a position to send it to extra time, basically. So it's a gritty win for the Dogs. It's one of those wins that makes you feel like they really can make the finals this year. They've made a habit of winning these games, and you don't win them without great defense. But it's another same old story for Cronulla, a game where they've scored more tries than the opponent, and yet they lose. And in terms of the victors, of course, Matty Burton was excellent. But I have to shout out this pair of starting front rowers. I thought Max King, Sam Hughes, against a powerful Sharks pack that I thought would lay the platform to a Sharks win. These boys stepped up. I think both starting props for the Dogs had over 150 meters, and that as their strength. It's been more obviously the playmakers and just generally the defense. But if they can get some go forward off the big boys as well, they can cause upsets moving forward through the year. Now, let's move to Saturday, where it's not really an upset because after Thursday night, it was known that the Broncos weren't going to play their origin stars. So Haas, Carrigan, Walsh didn't make the trip to New Zealand. I think that's pretty reasonable. I don't know whether they would have gone straight from Melbourne to New Zealand or had to go Melbourne, Brisbane, and then out again. I think in the long run, it's more important to be healthy, and because Brisbane still has a team that can really beat just about anyone in the finals if they're there. And you got to remember Reynolds will come back into this team. The issue is you keep dropping these games, it's going to be harder and harder work to get to the finals. So it's a tough call for Kevy. It's a bold call, not a simple one, not one that we necessarily would have expected. I think he's got the foresight there of keeping his most important players fresh or out of harm's way. And also, it was suggested in the TryPod group that it was a genius move by Kevy because the Warriors never win as favourites. And I talked about this on the pod the last few weeks. You can't trust the Warriors at all as a favourite. So the Broncos, by resting their best players, made New Zealand a favourite, gave up New Zealand the opportunity to choke. But, man, I tell you, I know this is one of those things people always say, oh, I nearly tipped it when when something wins. But honestly, I'm sitting there on the pod on Thursday night and the line had moved. And I'm still in my head, I'm still saying, just play New Zealand, play them anyway. Like, it's still such a good bet. And then we moved to the next game and I said, oh, look, I don't want to make a pick in the heat of the moment. And then the more I thought about it, of course, New Zealand, it was a great bet this week. I think there's a stat that teams that have 60 put on them are like 9-0 in the last 10 or 15 years the following week. Some people wouldn't have wanted to back them after they were deplorable against the Gold Coast. And I was on them there and I got absolutely burned. And yes, it does trigger me a little bit that this New Zealand team can go from so bad to so good and actually be desperate in defence. And I go from watching New Zealand give up 66 to the Titans to shooting out to a 16-0 lead again. If you didn't see this game, though, the Warriors did not have it all their own way, to be fair. From 16-0, New Zealand, and all the ball and all the opportunity and just hammering down the door of the Broncos' defence in wet conditions and tough conditions, in front of a sold-out crowd, it's got to be said, the Warriors fans still getting behind this team, which is just what made that game so important for New Zealand to stand up and be counted after such humiliation the week before. Look, Brisbane, you've got to actually hand it to them, hung tough, got a try before half-time, got the first try of the second half. It was 16-10 to Brisbane. And I dare say if Mariner hadn't dropped so many balls earlier in the game, could have been even closer. I know Mariner did score the try that cut it back to a one-score game. And I also think if you're a New Zealand fan, you would have been spewing about a blatant knock-on by Mariner early in the second half that was missed, that would have given New Zealand possession on the Broncos try line, and instead Brisbane had a set and then got a penalty and got out of there. But from 16-10, that's as close as Brisbane got. There was an attacking opportunity for Brisbane, a grubber in behind. I thought a really close call that the bunker got wrong in terms of the line dropout versus 20 tap, and they gave the 20 tap to New Zealand, and New Zealand actually subsequently scored and then pulled away. And final score 32-16 it was to the Warriors. And a standout, they don't miss Sean Johnson. I don't think it's Johnson's fault. I think the team just looks to him a bit too much when he's there, and he's played games where he's been injured or like been playing through an injury or actually copped an injury in those games. So, of course, they've struggled. But they do seem more free when there's no focal point of the attack, and it's and there's strike all across the park. But Barnett didn't actually play for the Blues, but was 18th man. I thought he came back and was New Zealand's best yesterday. Let me know what you thought in the comments. We had Cowboys upset of the round, unders, solid bet on, I think Ryan saying Bulldogs games this year. What about the Bulldogs must be taken seriously, showed a lot of guts. I'm going Bulldogs under 46.5 for Bulldogs Warriors next week, Ryan says. And Colt, the Wars had to stand up and he counted, and that's what they did at this point in the season, as Harry Potter is hopefully enjoying me barbecuing alone. So New Zealand, you're right, had to win that game. Brisbane have lost 4 in a row. The thing about Brisbane is you can't really blame them for any of the 4 losses. Like, this is an incredibly tough one. You went over without your star players. New Zealand's in the mother of all bounce back spots. Again, it's shame on me for missing that tip. Like, I don't want credit because I saw it coming. I blame myself for not tipping it. I've got the ability to share it as a best bet, and I missed that one, and it irks me just as bad as probably tipping a loser. Anyway, the thing is, that's an excusable loss. Honestly, the Brisbane loss in Sydney to a South side that just regained the wind in their sails and had their form players back and firing. And, there was no Walsh in that game last week or 2 weeks ago. That's a very excusable loss. Losing at home to Cronulla, you don't like to lose at home in that fortress of Suncorp, but Cronulla's a pretty strong side. Cronulla needed to bounce back from a couple of poor performances. It was a tight game, and Brisbane loses it. And then the other one that's just inexcusable is Brisbane gives up, I've lost count now, 38 points to the Titans on a Sunday arvo. That's the one where you blow a game like that, where you definitely took the opponent for granted and took it too lightly, and then it compounds, because it wouldn't be so bad if they could say they went 1-3 through this Origin stretch, but 0-4 is pretty glaring. I mean, Brisbane right now are not inside the top 8. So there's still time and ability in this Brisbane team. And I'm the one, to be fair, been saying all year long, not as good as last year. And like a lot of people have been obviously giving it to me about what a juggernaut Brisbane are. Now, there's always excuses for them. There's always a couple of guys out. But like the Brisbane team last year actually won the corresponding fixture. They went over without the Origin stars and beat New Zealand. And New Zealand was better last year than they are this year. So I think there are definitely kind of those telling signs that the Broncos have dropped off a little bit from last year. And what do you expect? You lost Herbie Farnworth. You got Dean Mariner. Well, Dean Mariner makes like 5 errors a game sometimes when he's not switched on. Or, there is no replacement for Tommy Flegler. And ran injury-prone player. And also teams are a bit more ready for Brisbane and what they possess. And all the best players, continuously get picked for Origin as well. And you will miss those guys for a game or two. So it's a tough one. Brisbane are going to have to pull out some strong results to get back into the 8. I'm just also saying, while I've been telling people Brisbane's not that great, I'm also saying don't write them off. Now, the game of the round was probably the next one, and probably a bit unexpected, but Newcastle 34 beat the Eels 26, and it wasn't. It was actually even closer than that, because that included a length of the field runaway try to end it for Bradman Best. He had 2 of those late in this game. So As Ryan says, Brisbane have got Panthers next week, and of course, Panthers are off a loss, so it doesn't get any easier for Brisbane. Paul says Bradman Best had a blinder. Now, if you look at the stats, Best stats are going to look even greater because I think he had 2 80-meter length of the field return tries. Obviously, really stuffs the stat sheet. But the truth is, Bradman Best actually was that great throughout the game, not just with his tries, but his assists and his threat that he posed and his runs. Real superstar. I couldn't help but watch him and go, geez, you're unlucky that you didn't have this form because of the hamstring injury a couple of weeks ago, or Best would have got that left centre spot for New South Wales. But it's just Latrell came into his own at the right time. And obviously, Latrell's not losing that Blues jersey anytime soon. But Bradman Best would be the next outside back, I think, waiting in the wings. He is a stud player as well. And the stars were out to shine in this game. I mean, Mitch Moses off the game of his life. Didn't know if he would play because they said, he's managing the foot injury. It was unreal as well. Had a double, just showing that electric pace that, Moses might be probably is the fastest halfback in the comp. And we know he can lay it on for others with 4 try assists on Wednesday, but tough to tackle, tough to handle for defenses, especially when they're on the back foot too. I just love this game because it was back and forth, try for try the whole game, and a bunch of tries disallowed as well. You wouldn't think a game that had 60 points would have also had 5 or 6 disallowed tries. And a couple of them I don't even think the bunker got right. I mean, there's a Sivo try. I really believe Sivo gets the grounding. I'm not sure what the bunker was really looking at. There's another dives and keeps the ball in, and it's called a knock on. It never was a knock on, and I didn't actually get to see how that played out. I had a suspicion that Parramatta got a grounding after that, but they didn't look any further. Look, the Knights had tries disallowed as well, and at home gave the crowd their money's worth and then some. It was a really exciting game for various reasons, but a highlight seeing Will Price, son of Leon Price, getting that debut and the opening try as well. And it is a really big win for Newcastle. As I say, seesaw affair. The Eels are in front late in this game before the Knights finally get the lead through. And it was an intercept or a drop ball that Bradman Best picked up and took the other way. That's right. It was a Eels attack, actually, when the Eels were down 2 or 4 late in the game and looked like they had the numbers out on the right edge, and Bradman Best took the intercept and went the distance, or intercepted a ball that went to ground anyway, and then did the same later in the contest to seal it. But the thing is, when I look at the Knights, they don't look quite as dangerous this year. But if you pull out wins like this, and the news was this weekend that Ponga is eyeing a round 20 return, and they know they can go to another level when Ponga gets back. So there's going to be great belief and confidence in the team. And they've unearthed some other talent like Sharp, and even before that, it was Armstrong at fullback. So they've kind of got some New South Wales Cup players that have got valuable experience and gives a bit of cover, around the back line. So they're a side that definitely is going to be frisky towards the end of the year and keeps their season well and truly alive. Let's move to later, the nightcap Saturday night. And this was another positive for me because we had another best bet winner. Although my Winnie's Kitchen missed out, I had the under 50.5. I had the Storm to win both halves, but I had the brick with tries to register. And he came close more than a few occasions. He actually did score a try and then they ruled it out. But I think that was the 62nd minute. I did need him in the first hour. So, look, my $11 Winnie's Kitchen, trying to bounce back after I had my pants pulled down with New Zealand a week ago. He's got close. But look, at least we did get the best bet there, and a game where the line was 15.5 on Thursday, and me choosing to play Storm to win both halves at a better price than minus 15.5, actually won where the line would have lost. So that's sometimes people, accuse me of getting too cute with it, or with, you're playing a derivative, you're playing something indirect. Like if you like Cronulla, just play the Cronulla line. Well, I liked Cronulla, but I also liked unders, so I played Dogs unders. I liked Storm here, but I just preferred win both halves because I suppose I could see it being somewhat of a grinding affair, not necessarily a total blowout. But I felt as if Melbourne should be in control. And look, that's the difference between winning and losing in that bet as well. Geez, it hurts when it goes the other way though. Like if it had been, 6-all at halftime and then the Storm had blown out second half, then you think I should have just played the line. But it certainly feels good when a plan comes together. Mind you, I did have to wait until the 37th minute for the Storm to score. It was 0-all before that, but the Storm score very late in the half. I have to say, I don't think I win this game without a shocker from Xavier Savage. I think he dropped the ball 4 or 5 times, and like 3 of them at like critical moments, including in the first half that leads to that Storm try, another error that leads to a Storm try in the second half. And it's an ugly win for Melbourne. But boy, is there any team in the competition that knows how to win ugly more than Melbourne? Let's get into a few more of these comments. Ryan, just back to the Eels game. Eels slightly hard done by, but great game to watch. And Colt saying it ebbed and flowed. And then Roger on the Storm game. Tues is underrated. Do you think they should target Stefano from the Tigers? Is Jerome Hughes underrated? I feel like everyone knows how awesome he is. And it's even better when you've got superstars that aren't Origin eligible because they're going to carve up the competition through the middle weeks of the year and you don't have to worry about that. Should the Storm target Stefano? I think everybody should. The offer that the Tigers are giving, if we're going a little tangent, 5 years, $4 million. I know that is an eye-popping kind of money, but $800,000 a year for an up-and-coming prop that I already think is one of the best handful of props in the comp and has so much promise. I don't want to necessarily overpay for a prop. There have been examples of, props having a career year and getting paid at the absolute top of the market, where basically once you have a guy on a long-term deal at the top of the market, he has to basically be the best player at his position in the game or he's overpaid. But the thing about Yuto Kamanu, he's still got like his best footy ahead of him. And if you are the Storm, you might get him at a discount because it sounds like he's not happy playing at the Tigers, where it does hurt you getting rep jerseys on a team that doesn't have a lot of success. He does want to play finals. If I was Stefano, I would stay at West. I mean, I actually think there are signs there, despite the fact they lost by 40-odd today. You've got Luai coming. I think he should stay. But if he wants to go, I would suggest he'll go to a contender. And it is a good opportunity for a contender who probably doesn't have to actually outbid his club. They could even, I think they could just pay equivalent. And Stefano sounds like he will choose a club that's got that infrastructure. So I don't really like to see the rich get richer, but the other reason it would be actually an outstanding pickup for Melbourne is, if anything, that they've got like the star play. Like, they've got the star fullbacks. Look how well Farlongo went today and Pappenhausen was out. They're sweet at hooker. In fact, Harry Grant was rested. So remember, I made this bet on Thursday. I thought Pappenhausen and Harry Grant were playing. I lose both of them. We still win the best bet. So we're doing all right there. But Bronson Garlick is a legit, second choice hooker. Probably could be a starting hooker at several other teams. And I thought Garlick had that decisive assist to Blore that got the Storm, with that commanding lead second half. What I'm getting at, obviously, you got Jerome Hughes, you've got Cameron Munster, but you could really benefit from having that kind of building block, linchpin, middle forward. I do feel like when Storm have been found, second best in the finals last year against teams like Penrith and Brisbane, those teams were just too powerful through the middle. So that's my long-winded answer. What do you guys think about Yuto Kamanu? Like, what should he do? Is $800K a year too much? And which other teams should go for him? Now, Colt saying, not sure how well Gutho's going. That was, I didn't note that to say that, but I was actually looking at that going, Gutho has so much now. Is a savvy veteran and a great leader and knows where to be and is extremely fit. But in a competition where there are so many electric fullbacks and where you have teams like the Storm who can set Farlongo loose, and even the Dolphins playing today, and you got Trey Fuller, or the Titans who had the bye this week, but you got Keanu Kinney, isn't the first choice fullback. You can understand why the Eels kind of felt like they might be in the market for more game-changing outside backs. Now, Lomax is going there next year, but I do think he's an out-and-out centre. Is Talangi the better choice at fullback? I don't know if Gutho can reinvent himself at a different position. But like Penasini's not a bad centre either, so I'm not sure where that leaves Gutho. You don't really need a halves replacement either. But look, I had that observation as well. Colt, shocking game. This one, talking about Raiders Storm 2 weeks in a row, Saturday night has been hard to watch. Oh, look, that game was all right last night. If you're talking about Manly Souths, that was an absolute eyesore. Colt, again, 2 liabilities in the Storm team, Big Tui and Trent Lee errors. And then DJ Kaisi talking about Fanua Bole is on the Tigers. Rather have him than retain Steph. At some point, if you just if the player keeps asking for more, you've got to just say, look, enough's enough. We'll try and cover it in other positions. Jackson says Stefano wants to win a comp. Storm is the honest team for him, or maybe the best team for him, but don't think Storm will pay that much for a prop. I can appreciate that, but again, I think if you're not paying overs because the guy's willing to just come to you for possible success, then it's a great opportunity, and I'm sure there'll be a few good teams sniffing around. Someone else says they hate the Storm. Okay, so thanks for the chat, guys. I think that's kind of my main takeaways from Raiders Storm. Bit of an ugly win, but Melbourne has done that all year long and remains top of the ladder. And again, the Raiders weren't that far away. I do feel like just errors did them over, and I talked about Savage in particular being the major culprit. Okay, so if we move today, we had a triple header. This afternoon, I said, like, this is the thing. I look at the game, and I did feel it'd be a favourite, and I talked about how this is a very dangerous game for the Dolphins. Like, the Dolphins are better than St. George in my mind, but the Dragons are at home. The Dragons were off a bye. The Dragons got pumped by the Dolphins earlier this year, owed them revenge. The more I thought about it, like, Lomax, you lost your kicker, but like, the hammer is more central to the Dolphins' attack, so probably was a bigger loss. In the end, it wasn't even really the key position players or Hunt backing up necessarily. It was the Dragons' forward pack that just took over. I don't even feel like there's one or two I could single out. It's just about the whole pack ran over the Dolphins late. But again, if you didn't see the Dragons-Dolphins game, the only thing I would say is it's another one where there was no try for like the first 37 minutes before the Dolphins actually scored off a late Dragons error and led 6-2 at the break. And the Dragons responded at 6-all. And I just have to say, 6-all, about the 50th minute, it's anybody's game. And there's 2 knock-on calls against Connolly and Lemuelu that swings the game for the St. George. And the first one is the Dolphins are in attack and they grub her in behind. And Lemuelu is probably going to score. And as he goes to ground the ball, he gets smacked in the face, like in the mouth and in the nose, causing his lip to bleed, and then knocks the ball on. And the bunker checks it. And one angle, it's like, oh, he got smacked in the face there. And the bunker's like, just going to check if it's a knock on. They change it to a different angle where it's even more clear that he gets smacked in the face. And they say, Lemuelu's knocked on, 20-meter tap St. George. And I'm like, I just can't believe that the person actually can be blind and can't see that. So it's like they just ignore something if they don't want to make a call because, I don't know, you don't want to give a penalty against the home team for a slap. Like, I know it wasn't the biggest hit of the year, but if you smack someone in the face when they're about to grab a ball and ground it, I'm not even saying like penalty try. I'm just saying you can't call a knock on against him. It is a penalty. I've seen much softer ones this year, and that's in a try-scoring position as well. In a loose ball situation. That killed the Dolphins. They drop it next time they get the ball as well, and the Dragons score the very next play. And unfortunately, St. George didn't look back. I say unfortunately because I am a Finns fan. Got my Finns paraphernalia here, but look, I guess I shouldn't complain too much because the Dragons deserve to win that. The Dragons dominated at the end, and again, the Dolphins could not quite handle that Dragons pack. And I'm sorry to keep complaining about it, but I can't help but keep thinking, imagine if the Dolphins never lost Tom Gilbert the preseason, like what an extra addition he could have been to this team. I feel like the position that the Finns have got themselves in, and what was it, just a week or two ago, were sitting top 4, like now they have to make the finals, but I really don't know if they will. Never said that this Dolphins team is like top 4 caliber, just that they were going, they were having a good year and they were pulling out some games that were surprising. And it's still quite a long way to go. So, I mean, good news is the Hammer shoulder injury doesn't sound too severe, but he still does have to get through another Origin as well. But like a team such as St. George wins again today and gets back in the 8, I will talk a little bit about like kind of the race for the top 8, because this was a fascinating weekend. A lot of teams really did revitalize their season this weekend. And that includes the North Queensland Cowboys, who got the upset of the week. And I give a shout out to Flovey in the TryPod group, who tipped North Queensland at $4. And his logic was, we already knew the Cowboys players were rested, but the Panthers resting was not all confirmed yesterday. It was just considered likely that Ivan was going to rest most of his stars. In the end, North Queensland went in with no Origin players that all got a rest. And we actually did see North Queensland win a game like that against the Roosters a month ago. So Peyton putting faith in kind of that same squad depth again. And Penrith, we see them get it done no matter who's playing usually, especially at home. Isaiah Yeo backed up, which gave, leadership and strength and playmaking in the middle. But the rest of the Panthers Blues contingent were held out. So the line kind of went up and down, but ultimately stayed about the same because both sides rested. So it was a 10.5, 11.5 Penrith line coming into this. Ryan's controversy helps the Cowboys. Help me out there, Ryan. What helped the Cowboys? I mean, at one stage, Penrith got 7 or in a row in this game. The Cowboys got not 1 but 2 sin bins after getting first blood. The Cowboys struck first and we're up 6-0. Then there was a sin bin to Drinkwater, and the Cowboys actually got an intercept, got down the other end of the field and swung it out to the left and got up 12-0. And just held on from there. I mean, later in the game, Penrith were knocking on the door the whole way. I really thought this is the Cowboys' defense that I've been waiting for. I've kept saying, why can't this team defend like they did in 2022? That was such an impressive defensive outfit back then, and it's a similar list. And in so many games this year where the Cowboys, the game was there to be won, North Queensland was soft defensively and didn't want to tackle. But then you see a game like this. I know Penrith's without all their stars, but with the amount of ball Penrith did have, and again, Cowboys playing the game, a quarter of the game, a man short, it was a phenomenal defensive effort by North Queensland. And ultimately, Purdue, who got the second sin bin for a trip, a player who plays halfback in the Queensland Cup, has been thrown into centre for North Queensland, had never played centre in his life, played outstanding in the win over the Roosters. When Drinky went to the bin, Purdue went back to fullback. He gets his hand on the ball on a shift with a bit of space and burns Penrith and scores the clinching try as well. Ryan saying a few forward passes. Look, nothing really stood out to me as if the Cowboys got a major rub of the green. Like, I wouldn't take away from North Queensland, and I've definitely put them in the category of one of these sides that, came in with, a lot of question marks around their year and underwhelming so far this year, but boy, they're going to feel good coming out of round 17. I mean, not much I can say about Penrith. If this game was much must win, more of their stars would have backed up. But Penrith has the luxury of picking and choosing their spots. And it is surprising to have this flat spot at home. And it's happened a couple of times now for Penrith. And there are some stats around like how rare it is for Penrith to lose at home flop. But North Queensland just got the better of them today. More desperate. It's as simple as that for me. And so let me go back through the results. And let's just talk about, if you are a fan of any of the following teams, you're feeling so great coming out of this weekend. Right, if you were a Dogs fan, you already felt good coming in, but winning a game like this would be a bonus. But to extend that home supremacy and get that, that golden point win over the Sharks, and I think there's a stat that the Doggies have won 7 of their last golden point games. But like as a Dogs fan, you now absolutely believe you're finals bound. If you're a Warriors fan, boy, you were soul searching a week ago after you thought the season turned around with 3 straight upset wins. Then you lose by 60 to the Titans and you're absolutely dismal, but you're straight back. You're bouncing back against last year's grand finalists. Yes, they were under strength. Warriors fans aren't going to care about that. Warriors fans absolutely still believe they should be making the finals. Their best player of the season last year, Sean Johnson, still will return into this team. If you're a Knights fan, again, it's been a bit of a muddling season, but to get an exciting win like that at home and get the promising news on Ponga and see some of these young guns that have emerged in the last few weeks being unearthed. And even though the Knights hadn't got the wins, like very competitive against Penrith, against Storm, and now you get the rewards, like you're feeling really good now as a Newcastle fan. Storm fans have been feeling good pretty much all season. And when you look at the Melbourne Storm, getting it done, even though it wasn't pretty, and you look up in the box and you see Pappenhausen, Harry Grant, Cameron Munster, like there's $3 million on the sideline. That's why can't Storm win the comp, you know? And if you're a Dragons fan, you're thinking back to 2 weeks ago, you let a game that was so winnable slip against Manly, where Manly was absolutely decimated and had none on the bench in the second half. And then you had to think about that game for 2 straight weeks. But you come out and take care of business with a 20-point win against a top 8 side like the Finns. You're feeling great as a Dragons fan. You're in the 8. Not many people pick that. And then if you're a Cowboys fan, you definitely didn't expect to win this Penrith game at all. And you rested your origin stars, which could be considered a long-term play, not a short-term play to get this win. And you got the best of both worlds. You got the rest and you got the win. You're feeling phenomenal. Cowboys were the last team in the comp to get a bye. Got that valuable win down in Canberra where they were an underdog and where you easily could have seen them losing that because it's been that kind of year for North Queensland. So that's a brave win in Canberra in your 14th straight game. Then you got a bye. You beat the Premiers. You still got 2 byes to come. So you're feeling excellent. And then, of course, the Roosters game, the Roosters still feel like they can win the comp. Now, Joey Manu fractured his hand in this game, which is the only kind of negative for the Roosters today. But I mean, again, we won the mixed matchup. If I just go back to kind of the pod lens, won it with 3 tries in short succession in the first half. Clarkey's collect. Not only did he say he really liked the Raiders, and the beauty of how we came at that game from different angles was that Clarkey took plus 15.5, and I took Storm win both halves, and you win on either side of that. It was 20-0 to the Roosters at halftime. So then I'm thinking I should be in line for a sweep here as long as we don't get backdoored. And Teddy, with his beautiful tip-ons, tips it on to Tupou. That cashes Clarkey's collect. That put the score beyond reach. If it wasn't already over, it certainly was once the emotions ran high and Appy and then Adam Dewey both got sin-binned. And as you can see on the screen, the Roosters put up 40-piece. The Tigers actually were held scoreless until the final minute of the game. So 40-6 was the final score. And all I can really say is what I suggested going into this game. The Tigers are not a very good team, and they burned me the last 2 weeks going against them for best bets, but I went against them for a 3rd straight week because I didn't think 12.5 points would be enough for West. Not against this level of Roosters side. And I rolled the dice a little bit because I didn't know if any Roosters origin stars could get rested, but I felt confident enough even if that was the case. And it went my way with no Roosters rested for this one and put on a bit of a clinic. So I would call that a reality check for Wes. And I think I've talked about just about every team, but I mean, those sides you can see at the bottom of the ladder, at the bottom of the graphic, it's not a great weekend for the Rabbitohs or the Seagulls. I'm sorry. They both got the bye, but I mean, the Rabbitohs have won 4 in a row. But as I just said, look at all these other teams that the Rabbitohs would be fighting with to get a top 8 spot. So if you did take the megs about Souths to make the 8, like I did, it actually wasn't the best weekend for us. Cowboys, they could easily make the 8 now. Dragons could make the 8. Knights could make the 8. Warriors could make the 8. Bulldogs could make the 8. You know, those teams could all end up nudging Souths out on points difference. And that's if Souths keep winning. For the record, if you are on Souths to make the 8, 10 games to go, they're going to need to win 8 of those. And I look at the schedule and I see the next 4, Souths could be favourites. So I think Souths have to They've just won 4 weeks straight. They're going to have to win another 4 weeks straight. And then that still puts them in a position where they'd need to win 4 of the final 6. But at least then you're starting to get more realistic. And Manly dropped out of the top 8 as well today, like sitting 9th. And I just think some of these other sides, even the ones slightly below Manly, probably have more ability than the Seagulls. So, yeah, I think if you're any team around the middle, when the other sides you're in competition with, when you're in that logjam with, play the top or the bottom, you're hoping either for upsets or you're hoping that the top teams take care of business. But this was a weekend for the middle teams, by and large. So if you're a fan of one of those sides, you're probably pretty excited. If you're a fan of the pod, I thank you. Thank you for sticking with me through like a really horror season. And at least, this is one of those weeks where I'm still really not satisfied because I feel like I should have found more winners. But look, I'll take it. We'll take it and we'll move on. Thank you to everyone that tuned in tonight. Hope you have a great week. Be back in 48 hours to preview round 18.